So how has, toys changed from when you were a kid?
In every way possible. There was none of this stuff where you could see things. You just had to imagine.
Really?
Yeah, I'm having a montage in the beginning.
Alright, so now what is this exactly about?
I'm asking people about, their technological literacy and basically how things have changed since they were kids. So, yesterday, I was like, oh, Dad, how have the toys changed since you were a kid? I'm like, wow, they used to actually be toys, not computers.
I know, that's true. It's very true. Toys are not toys anymore. They all have some electronical scheme behind them all to enhance children's learning, which I think is really ridiculous. Because let kids be kids for once. Because I remember I'd go outside, play all day, come home for dinner. Today, kids sit there.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle, and I'm a millennial. Like all millennials, my identity is largely based on the technology I use. I'm constantly seen on my iPhone, my laptop, and my iPad. I was born during that weird period between the late 90s and the mid-2000s where we as a society watched technology slowly creep up and essentially take over our lives. Jonathan Gottschall's storytelling animal expresses, quote, people dream and fantasize. Our children romp and dramatize as much as ever. We are hardwired to do so, and yet many worry that fiction may be losing its central place in our lives, that we as a culture might be leaving Neverland behind, unquote. The landscape of storytelling has changed dramatically. Technology has moved from written stories on paper to digital ones on screen. Games like Dragon Age and Legend of Zelda captivate us for hours at a time. It's interactive. It transports us to a world we'll never have in reality. Gottschall even says that games like that, quote, achieve what it does because it bundles the creativity of many hundreds of collaborators. Programmers, writers, social scientists, historians, visual artists, musicians, and others, unquote. But we don't consume media the way we used to. Millennials like myself know this all too well. We have seen the change. We have even felt the change within ourselves. It's much more perplexing for my generation than any older generation, because we remember a time when social media and our cell phones weren't such a pivotal aspect of our own identity. In Sherry Turkle's novel, Alone Together, which examines the sociological aspects of technology, she says that, quote, technology has become like a phantom limb. It's so much a part of them. These young people are among the first to grow up with an expectation of continuous connection. Always on and always on them.
On technology, there's social media. I mean, in person, there might be a bit of a social problem if someone's talking to you when you're on your phone. And it's you don't want to be on your phone when someone's talking to you. It's just it's kind of rude. It's like when you're reading a newspaper or something, you don't want to be reading that newspaper while someone's trying to have a conversation with you.
Like everything, there's a social etiquette. But because new media at this capacity is so new and groundbreaking, it seems like we are still working out the kinks to what appropriate use of this technology is. Turkle's comments on this particular subject comes to my mind. Quote, online connections were the first conceived as a substitute for face-to-face contact, when the latter was for some reason impractical. Don't have time to make a phone call? Shoot off a text message. But very quickly, the text message became the connection of choice. We discovered the network, the world of connectivity, to be uniquely suited to the overworked and overscheduled life it makes possible. And now we look to the network to defend us against loneliness. Even as we use it to control the intensity of our connections, technology makes it easy to communicate when we wish and to disengage at will.
Where do you think technology is going to go from here?
Seeing as I can't predict the future, I'm not quite sure. But if I could, I guess I'll say, given if there's not an apocalypse or something to that degree, it's obviously going to progress.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's interesting about today's society is that we cannot conceive where technology might go. What's the next step? I think we're so focused on the social ramifications of social media that we can't think past that.
Since, can we not look at our phones?
You walk into Walmart now,
Okay.
and you have a young person. They don't say, "Hey, how was your day today?" It's like,
How young?
We're talking about somebody in their early 20s. I'd say between 18 and 25. There is no feeling, it's like you walk in, "How you doing? How was your day going?"
So like there's no like family type feeling.
No,
when
there
you
isn't.
Go into like establishments
Nope.
like Walmart and stuff. Okay.
If I walk into a restaurant, I see the mother, the father, and the kids on the phone doing this, texting.
Of course, my mother isn't the only person to notice that new media has completely changed our culture. This kind of uneasiness when it comes to new media and technology hasn't gone unnoticed by the mass media. Shows like Blackish are confronting the way we used to be, the camaraderie and the warmth, to what they think is a cold and apathetic world.
The other day, I looked up Tom Selleck's net worth, and it said $4 billion.
What?
Billion with a B. Tom Selleck.
That could be right. I mean, he could have family money or an art collection. You don't know.
I don't care. I don't care. The internet is rotting your brain and destroying your wonderful souls.
Seems like you're having a parenting crisis.
What?
If only there was a resource you could use to get helpful information.
Oh, I know. Get out your white pages, find your local library, fight through some bums, and get a book from the 50s that tells you to beat us.
I don't need a book to tell me to beat your orkin' ass.
Even if you take our internet away, we can get online anywhere. You're just gonna have to trust us.
Okay.
A whole wealth of information can be accessed through a click. Our world has revolutionized so quickly that it's hard for me to see what's next for technology. What new social media platform can the tycoons of Silicon Valley think up? It seems to me that we're on the top of our new media game. We've hit the peak of what we could do. I've gone from playing Two-Town on a clunky desktop computer in my family's living room to reading a New York Times article on my iPhone while walking to class. And obviously, technology isn't as awful as it's been painted by older generations in television shows. There's a reason why it's latched itself on our culture and even our education. Turkle, who is clearly skeptical on the impact technology has on society, acknowledges such benefits by saying that, quote, "The network has to offer enhancing friendship, family connections, education, commerce, and recreation. The triumphalist narrative of the web is the reassuring story that people want to hear and that technologists want to tell."
Ooh. What does it say? Elizabeth?
Yes, stop it says mew 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 mew.
Oh.
Mew 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 mew.
So you know how to write music?
Just that. Just this much.
Just this much?
Mew mew.
And how old are you?
Elizabeth's 5 years old, and she's the best example I've ever come across to demonstrate that technology can have a profound impact on the way we learn. Seymour Papert, who wrote about the positives on the ever-evolving technology in his novel Mindstorms, often discusses the idea of playing Turtle to teach students geometry. It's absolutely revolutionary. The kind of learners and teachers Turtle geometry creates are tactile ones. It's a very hands-on approach to understanding a lesson. You can see real consequences in how geometry functions in reality. Papert writes that, quote, "An important part of becoming a good learner is learning how to push out the frontier of what we can express with words." From this point of view, the question about the bicycle is not whether or not one can tell someone in full how to ride it, but rather what can be done to improve our ability to communicate with others and with ourselves in internal dialogues, just enough to make a difference to learning to ride. So, why is Elizabeth so special? A little girl who has never taken a formal music class in her life has begun learning how to write music. She's recognizing symbols and melodies and harmonies. It doesn't matter if she's right. What matters is that we recognize that technology might be positively changing the way we learn. New media is such a polarizing subject. In my family circle, it seems that you have an entire generation a little afraid of it. There's this need that I myself feel that we need to slow down. Everything is being produced so quickly that there isn't really any time to catch up. As someone in their 20s, I can keep up with each new trend and pick and choose which one I'd like to use. For people my parents' age, it's much more daunting. I've been growing up as technology evolved. They were in their mid-30s by the time they finally purchased a flip phone or a cumbersome iPod that only held at most 100 or so songs. I think when people my age approach older generations, we make fun of them because to us, all of this stuff is so easy. When we post on Instagram and Twitter, we're thinking of analytics and likes, whether or not people are reacting to our photos. Millennials and younger generations are moving off of Facebook as our parents are finally signing up. We're 10 steps ahead of them. By the time we reach one avenue of media, they're miles away. We don't approach their hesitation with grace or patience, and it alienates them from learning about these things. I think it'll be a while before we finally reach this middle ground with new media. Like most things, there are two sides of the argument. There's a side that sees new media as this scary entity that we need to defeat, that we need to go back to the old ways of being, where we're warm and we welcome people and we don't use our phones for everything. However, there's also a really positive thing technology has on our society. We see little kids like Elizabeth who respond to technology in a way that it's supposed to be. We're meant to connect on technology, connect with family members that are hundreds of miles away, share our lives in real time, and to learn. Technology is a great education tool. I think once we learn a balance between real life and virtual life, I think we'll be much better off.